Did you know you can be spiritually manipulated into settling down with a spouse who, under normal circumstances, you would never ever even consider dating? There are so many unwanted unions out there, relationships influenced or initiated by black magic, dark spells, love potions, enchantments, curses, or other supernatural means. Sorcery in marriage denies you free will, the ability to freely choose who you want, and saddles you for a lifetime with a detestable stranger. Welcome to Invisible Dimensions, where we share our spooky, mystical, and paranormal encounters. I was a member of a local county assembly all the time, having been nominated by my political party to represent women. I was about 30 years old, and in my whole life, I had never encountered a witchcraft or sorcery, whatever you call it. I had heard stories of my colleague politicians seeking manipulative supernatural powers to help them secure their political seats, cabinet positions, lucrative businesses, tenders, contracts, among other endeavors, but I frowned upon such stories. I presumed them to be mere folklore, stories that were made up, stories that had neither heads nor tails, as bavardage. I didn't believe in witchcraft, in its existence, in its practice, and in its power. Sorcery was a foreign term to me. I must now admit that I was stupidly naive. On this Tuesday afternoon, we sat at the Witindu Square. It was our norm to relax there after lunch, just before the bell for the house was rung, catching up on the latest gossip. The square was named after one of our colleagues who, in spite of his advanced age, was a shrewd politician who had been elected by his constituents 6 consecutive terms into the assembly. Whenever the house was not in session and we didn't have committee work, Honorable Witundu, the old man, would be found almost every day sunning himself on the benches in the square. With time, most honorable members who didn't have much work started converging at the lawn. That was how the place got baptized as the Witundu Square. The place soon became our gossip hub, where all kinds of rumors, truth, half-truth, and sensational scandals were peddled. It was the place to be for all us politicians. It was the place we learned which colleague was sleeping with another, which staff member was sleeping with a certain honorable member, whose wife had left him, who amongst the female honorable members had deserted the husband and ran off with a young man, who was pregnant and for who was a child molester, who was queer, the governor's sexual escapades, who was pregnant and for who was a child molester, who was a queer, the governor's sexual escapades, the speaker's newest girlfriend, how the president of the republic battered his wife, major corruption scandals, both in the county and the country at large. Watindu Square was where news broke before officially becoming breaking news. If you didn't hear it at the square, then it didn't exist. The previous Saturday, there had been a pre-wedding party in the county, the kind which you would say in Swahili, ya kukata na shoka. It was attended by the who is who in the country. All of us assembly members had been invited. Most of my colleagues attended, but I didn't due to personal reasons. Both the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate were in attendance. There were countless members of the National Assembly, senators as well as cabinet secretaries. Our governor did attend, and countless members of the county assembly. A young girl, a nominated member of parliament representing the youth, was the bride. The groom was a young man. a pilot working for our national airline. It was a strategic partnership, a match made in heaven. Their future together looked bright. The young woman, Odelia, had actively joined politics immediately after graduating campus. This had culminated in her nomination to the National Assembly. She had met the pilot on one of their numerous international travels and instantly fallen head over heels in love. The feeling had been mutual, hence the pre-wedding happening in the girl's parents' home. The wedding itself was set to be in 2 weeks. A substantial amount of dowry had already been paid, and everything was set. It was rumored that the president himself would attend the wedding. I was therefore perplexed when, on this particular Tuesday afternoon, seated at the Wetundo Square, I had a colleague swear with the certainty that the wedding would not happen. Why? Why would this not happen? I asked incredulously, startled. I could not fathom what on earth could cause the wedding not to happen at such an advanced stage. I mean, it was supposed to be the wedding of the year. So much extensive planning and a lot of money had gone into it. We were all looking forward to it. Indecha has vowed the wedding will not happen. My colleague Anasu answered, a glint in his eye. But why? I asked vehemently, astonished, not understanding why or how a total stranger had the power to stop the wedding of the two lovebirds. I knew Ideche. He was the chief of staff in the governor's office. He was very active in matters party politics. Rumor had it that he had, in fact, played a very crucial role in Odilia's nomination to the National Assembly. Indeche had the ear of the official opposition party leader. They were very close. Don't you know? Anaswa explained spiritedly. Indeche had a fling with Odilia some time back. Such a preposterous, malicious claim. So, how does that stop Odilia from getting married to the man she loves? I asked disapprovingly. What don't you understand? Anaso asked Riley. And they say he's jealous. He says he wants to marry Odilia himself. Is Indechi himself not married? I asked skeptically. Besides, how old is he? Is he not about 30 years older than Odilia? Lisa, come on, Anaso said impatiently. This is Africa. Since when are men tied down to one wife? Forget about the age difference. The younger, the better. By then, our discussion had drawn other honorable members our way. Everyone seemed interested in the conversation. Anyway, I said sprightly, not wanting to appear beaten. Whether Indeche likes it or not, Odilia has already made her choice. It doesn't matter if they ever dated. That is neither here nor there. There is nothing under the sun he can do to cause the wedding to be cancelled now. I mean, the wedding cannot be cancelled just because they had a fling. Indecha has procured the services of our colleague here, Honorable Dr. Masinza, to ensure the wedding doesn't happen. And as I said animatedly, pointing in Honorable Masinza's direction. I laughed so hard. I laughed my heart out. I laughed uproariously. I laughed sarcastically. You see, Masinza barely graduated high school, so he was neither a medical doctor nor in the academia. All we knew about him was that before actively joining politics, he was a native doctor, a polite term for a witch doctor or a sorcerer, or one of those. That was why people simply just referred to him as Daktari, a Swahili word for doctor. Even as I continued laughing myself senseless, I remembered at the back of my mind that Daktari had over the years built himself quite a resume. It boasted high-end clients from all over the country, mostly politicians. He was discreetly on the retainers of about four governors, various members of parliament, a few senators, countless members of county assemblies, business people, contractors, principals of institutions, among many others. He didn't speak English. He was semi illiterate, but the services he offered spoke for themselves. Being a native doctor had opened doors for him that the white man's education could never open. For the 2 years I had worked with Dr. I never, even once, had him brag of his prowess. In fact, had I not heard it from fellow colleagues who had been his clients, I would never have known that he dabbled in manipulative dark spiritual powers. He never spoke about it, never brought it up, never bragged about it, and never solicited for clients. He was high on doctor client privilege and confidentiality. When colleagues who had sought his services lauded him for a job well done, he would shrug it off, smile shyly, and say nothing. He never beat his own drum. By the way, have I told you that Indeche and Daktari were very good friends? Daktari was not your typical scary, queer-looking wizard who wore strange regalia, carried weird paraphernalia, and chanted gibberish. On the contrary, he was always well dressed in classy designer, well fitting suits. He worked out and he had a well toned body to show for it. His hair was always stylishly cut, his nails well manicured, and his skin glowing. He was still very young, by the way, barely 40. He cruised around in classy high end cars. He exuded money. He exuded wealth. But still, I laughed. I laughed gleefully because I knew that if Daktari was the only card in the chose playing, I knew for sure that the wedding would happen. There were no valid grounds for a cancellation, and surely how desperate could he be to procure the services of a sorcerer? Above all, I laughed dismissively because I didn't believe in magic. Above all, I laughed dismissively because I did not believe in magic, occultism, divination, sorcery, curses, witchcraft, and the works. And so, I stupidly believed they didn't exist. I didn't believe in spiritual manipulation. I didn't believe normal human beings like us had the power to summon dark or good supernatural powers and bend them to do our will. And so I continued laughing ignorantly. I only stopped laughing stupidly when I saw all my colleagues looking at me contemptuously. Guys, I said remorsefully, apologetic. I'm sorry, but please forgive my ignorance. Anyway, are you all saying that Daktari here, whom I have lots of respect for, by the way, has the power to stop Odelia wedding his boyfriend? You know, Lisa, Daktari cut me short calmly, smiling ever so slightly, looking around at the other colleagues. You don't have to wait long. When is today? Tuesday, right? Be patient. Isn't the wedding set to happen in less than 14 days? Are we not still colleagues? Fine. Let's meet here again 2 weeks from now. Yay, yay, my colleagues cheered, approving the challenge. Daktari has spoken. Daktari himself has spoken. Let's wait and see. The bell rang for the afternoon session. The gathering dispersed as we entered the house. The honorable members were divided into two camps. Those like me, who didn't believe Daktari had the power to stop the wedding, and those who attested to the superpower of witchcraft. I went home that evening and forgot about the whole story. I never gave it much thought until about a week later when I heard that Indeche had packed a lorry full of cattle and, together with some elders from his clan, driven into Odelia's parents' home and paid dowry for Odelia. The same Odelia who was set to have a white wedding in just about 4 or 5 days. What was surprising was that Odelia's parents and clan elders had welcomed Indeche with open arms. When Odelia was asked whether her parents should accept the dowry, she had agreed. And that, my dear readers, was how the wedding of the year was called off. When I went to work after the wedding had been cancelled, most of my colleagues were waiting for me at the Wetundo Square. I could feel the eyes on me as my driver pulled up into the parking lot. Lisa, have you heard? They all bombarded me exuberantly. Heard what? I asked, feigning ignorance. In which world do you live in? Someone asked. It is all over social media. Check the tabloids. Odele's wedding has been cancelled. You know, Lisa, the cherry said casually, winking, a triumphant grin on his face. You are still so young in the ways of this world. In fact, you are still a toddler. You should know people. But you are good people. A few days later, Odelia officially moved in with the already married Indeche as a second wife. The Indeche who was her father's age mate. The Indeche who earned just a quarter of what Odelia made in a month. I mean, it would have made sense if Indeche was wealthy. Then we would have said Odelia had married him for his money. The Indeche who married a third wife just a few years after marrying Odelia. The Indeche who had numerous other girlfriends besides his official three wives. And that, my dear readers, is how the wedding of the year was cancelled. It's okay if you still don't believe in witchcraft. I have no any other way of convincing you. To this day, I keep wondering just how many people out there are married to spouses they never cared for due to dark spiritual manipulation, due to witchcraft. Have you yourselves encountered such? Please share in the comments section. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment to help us grow.